Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to On Your Mental. This is the podcast that shares candid, open, and sometimes vulnerable conversations between and about men. This week, Kabir has brought in one of his best friends, Aziza, and she's sharing with us her own experience around dealing with things to help mental health. So things like journaling, empathy, all that kind of stuff. It's a great conversation. I hope y'all enjoy. And if you haven't already, of course, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Leave a like if you like this one. But we'll see you in a moment when the episode starts. Peace. This is fucking warm today. Hey? Like, this is pretty rough. Like, should you crack that? No, you can leave that like that and then pull the crank thing, the one that's behind the Pokemon. Behind the Pokemon. Yeah. Just pull that out towards you and then give it a crank to the right, like a clockwise spin.
Used one of these before?
I have.
First day. Keep it going. Jesus.
Oh, that feels a little better.
Does that?
I think so.
All right. Well,
Not sure.
cool. Anyways,
Take us off.
this is this is you, man.
Yeah, I know.
Do you want me to start?
How do you usually start these other than
It doesn't
obviously the
matter.
intro?
Hey, everybody, we're here today. Fucking, I'll do the intro.
Yeah.
I'd record it after. But welcome, Aziza. Welcome to On Your Mental. And today we're talking about some mental health stuff.
Yeah,
Bit of a broad spectrum.
it is. Sorry. It's just
Yeah,
all over the place.
You did go all over the place.
I did. We
I
usually
like
have
it.
an angle here, but you leave
Multi-angled.
me in charge, and this is what you get.
Yeah, chaos. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But thanks for coming. Thanks for
Yeah.
taking the
Thanks
time.
for having me. It's an
Mm.
honor. Big deal.
Yeah, I was like, oh, do you want to come on the podcast? She's like, really?
Sick.
Me?
Yeah.
That's cool. And you've watched the podcast before.
So I've never watched a full episode,
That's
but I
okay.
watched the snippets. You know,
Perfect.
the good times.
Right.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
that's what I'm going off
The
of
good
right
times. Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for coming. Cabs prepared all the questions today.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, everyone. You get what you get. We'll see how it
now.
plays
They're
out.
good questions. They're good questions.
Good questions. We'll see
He's
how they come out
growing
of my
up
mouth.
here.
though.
Yeah.
mhm.
Let's start off with a little background here.
Mm.
Thanks for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome.
Aziza and I have been friends for about a year and a half now. Sounds about right. The worst part of a year and a half.
Block that part out of my
I
memory.
definitely consider you one of my best friends.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
That's so funny. He's never mentioned you.
I thought you'd be a good guest because while we have like a very similar personality in terms of the way I think like we're both self-aware and like we value self-care the same. We both value empathy, and we're both Geminis.
the worst combination. Two Geminis in the room.
Yeah,
Is
well,
that
you're
bad?
like the crazy one.
Yeah,
I'm just normal.
two-faced as fuck.
That's what people keep saying, but I don't see it in myself though. Unless
No. It's not like being two-faced. It's like you
Right.
have like your inside personality and then your like outside
I
facade.
see.
You know,
Yeah,
like you.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense with Cabs.
When I first met him, I thought he was a dick.
Yeah, apparently. Oh, we started hanging out, and then she said we actually worked together, and I was like, oh, what?
So you
We
didn't
worked-
remember
we
me. We worked together for like 6 months. It was 6
She
months.
claims.
No, it's 6 months. Friday night, every night for like, no, not every Friday night, but like a good chunk of time. And then I set off the alarm one day by accident. I asked him to come downstairs to help me. And I was like, how's your day going? He looks at me and goes, good. And then just keeps walking.
I don't recall.
So then I
this
was like,
happening.
no.
Just because he doesn't remember it, it can't be
Douchebag.
true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, best
okay,
friends
yeah.
here.
Awesome.
But yeah, very similar personality-wise. But I thought you have a very unique approach to mental health in your like kind of like day-to-day life that we can get into later. But first, I kind of want to do a little, not necessarily a rant here, but I've been self-reflecting quite a bit these days,
I love it.
as one should.
As one should.
And I just noticed, well, you guys know me that I'm like, oh, no, I mentioned that I'm like very content with my life. I got no major complaints about like work, family, social life. I'm in great shape.
Go fuck yourself.
No, I feel great.
Just a big beauty.
But I can't help but notice, looking back, let's say when I was in high school, I was a lot more happy. And I was just smiling more. And life was just more fun. And I thought like so many things, so many random things were just more funny at the time, you know? Like I was always ready to laugh. What the hell? Is my question. And then like we have the narrative of like people tell you life is supposed to get more challenging and less fun as you get older. But why is that? Like I've compared.
I feel like you just develop more complex thought. You know, like your hormones leveling out. Now your brain is like not growing anymore. It's deteriorating faster than it's growing. 25, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just, you know.
Facts.
Yeah. Like reality is hitting you now.
Comparing like my leisure time to responsibility versus like the same, like when I was in high school. We were going to high school. We were going to school for like how many hours a day? Like.
But then after that,
After
like,
that, you still got
disconnect,
homework.
Did you do homework in high school?
Yeah, I was a really good student.
Aw.
I was doing homework. I had basketball practice almost every day. Responsibility was still the same, maybe even more back then.
It sounds like more. Yeah, it sounds like you did more in a day.
Yeah.
But did the consequence of responsibilities change? Because I think they did. Because now, if you do not like meet your responsibilities, I can't pay rent. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if I'm not going
Yeah,
to work,
you
I
got
can't
stuff.
live.
It's more of like an obligation.
Yeah.
It's something that you just do for fun.
And you're thinking a lot more forward too. I mean, you becoming a homeowner, Aziza, like that's a thing that maybe you want to think towards, you know, stuff like that. Whereas those are just things to get you day to day. You know what I'm saying?
But like back then, it was still felt big, you know?
No, that's fair. Yeah.
It felt bigger back then.
He felt bigger back then. This guy he's not very big these days, guys. You don't even know the half of it.
So no answers for that one. Hey, we're just going to leave it.
No, I think like, I don't know, man. Like I still see you as a pretty happy person.
Yeah, no,
but I think it's just different. You're more carefree when you're younger because you don't have responsibilities that have consequences if you don't meet them. That's the way that I see it, you know.
But do you feel like you have more obligations now than when you were in high school?
I don't think so. No.
It doesn't feel like it.
Doesn't feel like I'm definitely like I have more time to think about my responsibilities now. But maybe it's the social life that it's not as, because you see your friends every day at in high school, right? Maybe that's what it is.
Do you miss your friends?
Yeah,
like, do you miss? Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't get, and this I'll say this to you, Aziza. Cabs, like we've identified many times in these conversations, in private conversations, how important like social life is to him, like being with friends, spending time with friends. He'll go through periods of time where he starts to feel a little down, and maybe it's seasonal affective stuff, whatever, right? But then I'll tell you, I'll be texting him, I'll be like, yo, come hop on games, come like join games, come out with us. And he'll like, no. But that's not to point and be like, like, look at the solution, it's right there. Why do you think that is, that you even like get to places or periods of time in your life where you're avoiding social connection when right now you're saying how important it is to you?
You got me there.
That's a therapy question.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, sorry.
But do you have an answer? Do you not
No, I mean, totally right.
But why do you think that is? It's not about me being right here. It's about, like, why do you think that is?
Why do I not?
Yeah, why do you think? Yeah, why when you see the value, but you don't do it sometimes?
Maybe it's because I don't feel like a immediate result, you know? Like it's, when you're hanging out with your friends, you're having a good time, but you don't think about how it lingers later, right? Like you still feel good later. I guess
because it kind of carries over.
Yeah. I don't know.
Who knows? Something to think about.
Something to think about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It would be good for you to reflect during your self-reflection.
Yeah.
You're doing so often now.
Well, it's just.
Are you feeling more social now compared to like those bouts?
I feel like I'm more welcoming to social situations now, definitely. Before I was much more shy. But yeah, I'm definitely realizing the value of social life. But yeah, not as like not super eager to invite everyone out, you know?
I wonder maybe in combination with these responsibilities that are different now in your adult life, if that takes away from like your willingness to put in the effort to create social interactions for yourself. Because you were saying like in high school, you know what I mean, like you're always around your friends, it's done for you. Now it's a bit more of a concerted effort, like you gotta actually be the one to get on the games. And if you're gonna play games, you're never that guy. Like it just has to conveniently work.
That's right. And even when I'm invited out, it's like 50% chance.
But here's a question: are you happy alone?
Yeah. I mean, I like before it was like maybe 5 years ago it would be like, I love just being home alone and stuff. And now it's definitely less, less eager to, well, not less eager, but value more of the social life for sure. But I still enjoy spending time by myself, But I think because I've done it so much now, and it's not really doing anything for me.
Over and done with it, eh?
Enough of this.
All right, Gabs.
All right, first question for Aziza. Who do you think you are? Number two.
What gives you the right?
What gives you the right?
Okay.
All right, real question. We'll start off with a quote.
Yeah, please.
From the late, great Benjamin Franklin.
Newsflash. Kabir can read.
I'll be looking at my phone quite a bit.
Barely.
If you... you guys fucking trip me up. All right, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. As a major procrastinator, self-proclaimed major procrastinator. I mean, I did send you these questions, both of you, like 3 hours before.
He said
I've been asking for them all week.
He's going to send them to me.
He said at least
last
a couple
week,
days.
And then Sunday, and then today.
He said 2 nights ago, he's like, yeah, I'm almost done.
That was the last night. Anyways, procrastinator, I struggle with planning ahead a lot of the time. How do you guys incorporate planning into your day-to-day life? Because I know you guys both do.
I mean, I don't know anything about.
Are you pretty organized?
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time organizer. Yeah. I mean, like even for tomorrow, right? I've planned out my whole day already. Like I know exactly what I'm doing pretty much every time throughout the day. Planning for this, like I was made sure to be set up by like 7 p.m. when we're filming at 8:30 p.m. Like no reason to be done an hour and a half early, but I am. You know, so I just like planning. I like organizing my life.
Have you always been a planner?
Yeah, man. Like as far back as I can like understand when you can plan things in your own life.
Right.
I was the only one in our entire group of 20 friends who actually like wanted to use their agenda in school. You know what I mean? Things like that. Like I'm planning out like which assignments are due on what days and stuff like that. Like
teacher, look at my
agenda. I'm pretty sure I was definitely one of those kids that like double checked like was the homework due today kind of thing, you know, when the teacher was going to let it slide. Yeah, I like planning. I see a lot of value in it. It organizes my thoughts for me a little bit and makes it easier to manage what I got going on. I mean, we were talking about responsibilities at the start of this conversation and the responsibilities you have as an adult. I find planning makes them easier to, I don't know, deal with. Yeah. You know?
Makes sense. I've just never been about it.
Have you tried?
You ever think about writing something down? Using a calendar?
Yeah, do you even own an agenda?
No.
Do you still own an agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a planner.
Yeah, dude, she's a planner too.
But I was not always like this. Like I started off with just going with the flow, but I would get so much anxiety doing that. And also I can't rely on my memory at all. I will forget. If I don't write it down, I will forget. So a lot of the time I just went by habit, but in high school it was the same thing for a whole year, same schedule, right? You just show up. And then I wasn't a big studier. Like I was not a good student in high school. I really had to learn to do everything in university. But university hit and it changes every 4 months. And that was a wake up call. But I also have like raging ADHD. So like my brain loves chaos, but I thrive on structure. Like structure is what is going to like get you through the day. So if I don't write it down, I won't show up, I won't get there. But now planning is like the planner itself, that's like almost like a grounding thing in the mornings, you know? And like at the beginning of each week, you'll write down everything that's like, you know, the things that you need to do throughout the week that you know, and then you just keep editing as you go. But I feel like, yeah, like planning, it doesn't have to be like a complicated thing either. It gives you an idea of what your week looks like, and then it gives you an idea of like where you have free time, where you can like, you know, prioritize like fun or prioritize, you know, something extra. Yeah.
Super valuable. I mean, like even just like schedule and routine fitting into planning, like you're a big routine guy. I feel like that goes hand in hand with planning. Like it lets you can plan out a routine. I have a question about like ADHD stuff. So I didn't know this about ADHD, and I'm assuming not everybody who may have ADHD deals with something like this, but do you ever get like planning like blocks where you know you have something coming up later in the day and that stops you from doing anything
until that? So I can never have, like, for example, today, 8:30 p.m. I go to bed at 9. There's number one problem. 8:30 p.m. and I had to be with friends today in order for me to like actually like get out and like move around. Otherwise I would stay at home and I would freeze and I would just wait and wait and wait for this to show up.
Right.
So yeah, like the sense of time that you have is like very skewed, and sometimes an hour can feel like forever, and sometimes time goes by like this. You don't even realize what you did all day. So having to write something down, like I had to run a couple of errands today. Again, they wouldn't have been done if I didn't write them down before I came here.
Right.
So that was when my day started, at 4:30 when I was running an errand. But again, I was frozen until then. I had to be with friends in order to get out of the house. So yeah, it's really weird. But I still don't really understand what that is. I just know that it happens.
It's like a paralysis within your own head. Like I have to be ready for this thing.
Yeah, and it's like you can't forget. Oh, you're gonna have to get ready. It's 6:30. I want to get ready at 7:30. Then at 6:45, okay, in 45 minutes I have to get ready.
Yeah,
okay, in 30 minutes I have to get ready. And that's all you can fixate on. Yeah, it's like a fixation.
But yeah, to answer your question, planning,
big planner,
huge for me as well.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I hate when people don't plan. When people don't plan and they involve me in something.
Oh,
get the fuck out of here. Why am I here? Why are we wandering around? The other, like we went out for, whose birthday was it? Sebastian's birthday. Longest friend of mine, right? Like best friend, guy's gonna be best man in my wedding, and if we allow for 2 best men, maybe Kabir will be 2. But we went out for his birthday, and we went out for dinner at a restaurant. That was planned. He showed up late, but that was planned. And then we were gonna go to one place, and then when we get there, we all went in like separate vehicles to get there. Some people got there first. They already went in. The rest of us are waiting outside because the other people are going to come out and get us and bring us in. And then they come out and they say, oh, it's not that great in there. We're not going to go here. We start going somewhere else, blah, blah, blah. We end up at a place that I don't give a shit for. So I left. I went home.
Fair enough.
I hate disorganization when I'm involved in it. And that's why I think a pretty real effort to be organized in my own life when I can be in control of it. I think it's a control thing. You know, part of it's a control thing. Let me know what's going on. Yeah. Sufficient answer.
What was the question? Okay. Good answers, everyone. All around.
And you don't plan.
What have your guys' experiences been like utilizing a journal? Because I know you both do. Losers. And does it help with anxiety, feelings of being overwhelmed? Because, like, for example, like, it'll be, like, not even that much going on. Like, last Saturday, I was working in the morning, after work, I needed to go home, get ready. I was hanging out with my brothers for a bit, went to Gastown, watched the UFC fights. Then I had met up with a friend after. For some reason not for some reason. That just feels like a big day for me, and I get, like, a little overwhelmed wondering if I have enough time to be a sloth at home for a little bit and get ready, you know? But anyways, journaling, does it help?
What kind of journaling do you do? Like, what does journaling mean to you?
Journaling to me is breaking down big ideas that I can't like simplify, that I can't shake in my head. That's at least what I use it for. For myself with journaling, the thing that I started it with was through counseling. Like I had never journaled before, and then my counselor recommended I try journaling to just get thoughts out, right? Just putting pen to paper and just like whatever you're thinking about, just like write it out, right? And that's what I started journaling with. It looked like a bit more chaotic. Like I have my journal there. It looked a bit more chaotic at first. Like it was like not organized. And then I've taken a different approach with journaling over time. Now what I use it for is if like I keep a daily list of like things to do. If a thing has been on that list for a really long time, it usually means that I haven't like worked it out yet. You know what I mean? I'm not getting to it for whatever reason. So the most recent thing that I journaled about was like trying to reset and recalibrate how I view doing this podcast, because I had gotten like kind of fixated on wanting to see like views come out of it, you know what I mean? Like it's got to be meeting certain like targets in my own head, and it took a lot of time for me to rework that and just get back to like, oh, this should be just a really good podcast about mental health, right? And I journaled and wrote a whole bunch of things down, and I sent it to you. Actually, I sent that page, and kind of it allowed me to narrow down to like 4 sort of core values that I want for each podcast episode. And that now is kind of like a filter that I'm using when I'm thinking about who to come on here. Our friend Brandon had been talking to us about someone else coming on, right? And I responded in one of those messages, like, these are the 4 pillars I kind of want to hit with this. I don't know if this person will do that, because I want a certain message to be coming through here on this platform. But that's the most recent example of how I do it. But in general, I use it to break down big ideas that I just can't think through without putting it in front of me.
Right. Yeah. Is that ever emotional? Like, do you ever do emotional journaling, or is it more so like ideas for craft?
Right now, it's been like ideas. In the past, when I started and when I learned about journaling, it was all emotional, because that was what I was dealing with like counseling stuff.
Yeah.
So it's whatever I'm dealing with at the time, you know. Emotions have been pretty solid, at least in, I would say, even now, maybe within the last year, close to the last year, emotions have been pretty good. So it has been like just working through problems using journaling for that. But yeah, when I started, it was just like, get your thoughts and feelings going, you know. Yeah. I heard this thing from, of all people, a manager of mine the other day about like certain anxieties and stresses that you might carry. You know, when people say like you got a burden like you're carrying on your shoulders, you know, that kind of stress and thing they put into words here, that kind of stress you can't manage because you can't see it. When something's on your shoulders, what the hell is it? It's just pressure. You know what I mean? Like, it's just something that's weighing on you. And what journaling does, I think, is it takes that thing on your shoulders and you bring it out in front of you, even if it's momentary. You just see it, and now you can actually manage it. And that stress or whatever, anxiety, emotion, whatever it might be, is now somehow more manageable because you've put it in front of you rather than allowing for it to sit on your shoulders. And that's what I think journaling does for me. Yeah.
When I first started journaling, like emotional journaling, it was like word vomit. But one thing that I was told once was, you know, anxiety and like stress is like, it's like a tornado of thoughts in your head. When you speak about things, the reason why you feel calmer is because you can only articulate one thought at a time, right? You can't articulate multiple thoughts at a time. You have to do them one at a time.
It's literally impossible.
It's impossible. So I struggled with talking about my feelings like all the time, and I would always throw it back on the person if I start to get like uncomfortable. And I'm like a huge question person. I will ask questions till the cows come home, just to keep the attention away from myself. So I learned that I need to just write things down, and that the same thing, like, you know, speaking out one thought, writing down that one thought was helpful in organizing kind of all the different things that could, you know, be stimulating my brain during that point in my life. Well, then I started counseling earlier this year, and then I stopped. But she made a comment, and she told me, she's like, the way that I see you is you're like a self-cleaning oven. She's like, you're, which I thought was like, I didn't understand it at first. And then she explained it to me, and she's like, you're able to articulate what is wrong, you know, like what you're feeling, the discomfort that you're feeling, which is like, I guess I got practice through writing it down. She's like, but to get to get to where you need to get to feel comfortable, you don't talk about it out loud. So when I got a counselor, this is the first time I was actually, kind of going through the process myself, trying to fix the problem before I accept her help. And she's like, you got there and we would have gotten there together. You just took the scenic route, So then I started journaling differently this year. And so now it's like, if you have a stressor or, anxiety about something, you write down the worst case scenario first. Because sometimes our emotions make the worst case scenario so much worse than they actually are, right? Like, let's say like school, for example, you're failing this course. What is the worst possible case scenario? You don't get the 3 credits, you do it again.
Yeah.
Is that unmanageable? Does that mean you get kicked out of school? Does that mean you're going to like lose a family member? Does the world stop spinning? Because that's what it feels like. But it's not what actually happens. Then you write down what will happen. Worst case scenario, what will happen out of it, and how do you find the solutions? And that was the best thing that I think I could have done for myself, because a lot of the time anxiety is repetitive. It'll latch onto the same problem over and over and over and over again. So then you just go back to that thought again and you go, no, it's the exact same streamline every single time.
Right.
So like emotional journaling in that sense was really helpful for me. And then I'm the type of person that will jump between hobbies all the time. Like I'll be like really into dance and then all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know, writing poetry, and then I'm like trying to paint. I'm not good at any of those things, but sure. I'm trying them. But then I'll write down those ideas and stuff as well. Like where do I want to get with them? And that helps me stay on that hobby longer and get past that like hump of I start to get bad at it, or I'm like not getting any better. And that's when I lose interest. That's also an ADHD thing I learned. I did not realize that. I just thought that I like sucked at committing.
Sure.
And I realized
you flip it and it's just you like to try every different thing.
It's like I get like a bit of dopamine from something and I get super excited about it, and then it just gets dull, and then it's like on to the next. That happens in like every aspect of my life too. School was the only thing that I think I carried out all the way through, but that's because I had like pressures of my Middle Eastern parents being like, if you don't finish your degree, you're like a loser. So that was super extrinsic, and I think I would have dropped out of school a lot earlier had I not had that like constant pressure. But like going back to journaling, like there's just so many different ways of using that method, I find. And especially if you're the type of person that struggles with articulating your words to friends, then like that's a good place to start. And then, you do your best. You do your best. But I think like journaling is really nice to like organize your thoughts and organize your stress. And there's times when like maybe you can't find a solution, you actually need to talk it out. At least you can go back to your book, like me embarrassingly opening my journal to review the notes that I have for like the conversation I want to have with a friend of mine. But that helps, and it makes the conversations more efficient.
It's like reviewing for like a job application or a job interview, you know what I mean? Like you take your notes, you're preparing for it, especially for difficult conversations. I can imagine that being really useful. Yeah. When I learned about journaling, there was a big hesitation, and I don't know if it's like a macho man thing. Like I don't want to open up essentially a diary. That's the way that I was thinking of it, right?
Because that is a diary.
It is. Yeah. It really is. And it took a little bit of like getting around that, because everything growing up in like media that's presented to you tells you that women write in diaries, men don't.
Yeah, don't think, just go.
Yeah, don't think, just go, man. Like just internalize it and deal with it, and like never talk about it. That's a good alternative, right?
Nice.
What made you want to ask about it before you jump to the next question?
This
guy's like just getting answers out of us today and doesn't want to share any of it.
Because we went from like, as I was starting with planning, and I thought journaling was kind of related to that, and I know you both journal. Yeah.
Do you have like an agenda and a journal, or is everything in one for you?
My agenda is essentially in my calendar app. That is my agenda, so I don't have a physical one that I write in at this point. But that's the journal. So that's it. I write in there time to time
as well. Do you have an agenda as well?
I know everything's all in one for me. I'm one of those, like, I love templates, like filling out templates. It'll be like, what are you grateful for today? I'm like, let me tell you. So I like journals like that, because I feel like again, I will get distracted or I'll forget about one of the books. So the journal that I used to use was a thing called Goal Crazy, and I was super addicted to them. But they're kind of wasteful in my opinion. It's only 3 months per book, and the books are thick. So I found another one where it's a week per page. So that's kind of nice because I can see the whole week in one page, and I can it just makes sense, I think, like for my brain as well. But there's sections for like all of that, you know, like reflection, and then there's sections for an agenda, and then there's sections for like, you know, prioritizing what are the tasks of the week, and then when are you gonna do it. It's good. It's good. I love it. And it's like massive too. I walk around with this like pink book. It's like part of my personality. But no, I like it. I like having it all in one place.
Do you feel it helps you kind of like center yourself and be present?
Grounding like crazy. Yeah. Yeah. It's super helpful. I like, this is a tough thing to describe, but this is the only time that I don't feel this way is when I'm journaling and when I'm having like a really good one-to-one conversation where like I'm not aware of like kind of being, I'm just very much in the conversation. But I like walk through life feeling like there's like a film in front of me. Like I can't really see everything totally clearly. And it's like almost, if you smoke weed.
Sure.
If you like kind of have if you have like a bit of a weed hangover the next day, you know, like you smoked a little too much, you wake up and you're still a little hazy. That's the feeling I have like all the time. And like I can't explain it. I don't really know why it's the way that it is. I thought that it was maybe because my vision was going, so I just should have been wearing
like
glasses.
Genuinely a vision.
Yeah, like it could be that, but it's not. It's just like, I guess like again like being a person that's like very much in my head. Like my thoughts are way louder than like everything else that's going on around me. So journaling helps because it pulls me out of that, and I'm way more present in what's going on. And then same thing with like really like good conversations, like good one-on-one conversations, especially when someone else is talking about like their complex thoughts, because I have to like process them. I have to like, I'm trying to understand like what they're talking about.
Sure.
Yeah.
Keeps you focused in.
When I think of you, I think of chaos in the brain, and then whatever comes like out of you or out of your mouth, it's like a, you know, when your receipt comes out of something and it's all organized.
It's so like, this whole time listening to you talk, I mean, there's like little pause here, but like you're very articulate. Like you can get a thought across really easily. I like listening to you so far. This is great.
Nice. Perfect.
So journaling.
Would you try journaling, Cabs? Is that something you'd ever consider?
Is it worth it? Up for a debate.
I mean, 2 out of the 3 people in this room think it's worth it, and the other person has never tried it.
It's like,
we have no argument here. Actually, I want to challenge you. No, but I think that this might be good for him.
It would be, man.
I think because like you might need a little bit of like external motivation, but if you, because right now there's a lot going on for you. There's a big stressor going on in your life right now, and you have not stopped thinking about it for the last like 2 days. Yeah. So I think you should try journaling. You should.
I might give it a try.
If I have like a spare journal, I think I do. Would you take it?
Yeah, I'd take it.
Even like on the days where you're like feeling like you don't want to talk to the guys, you don't want to get in like Discord, such a simple thing. You know, you could open up an app on your phone and all of a sudden you're talking to all of us.
Yeah.
On a day like that, like imagine just like writing out like why you don't want to. Like things will come out. That's the thing with journaling too, is like you don't realize as soon as you start writing it, the thought shows up.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the things where I'm thinking about journaling and I'm just like wondering, can I even get my thoughts out on here, you know?
You
like,
will.
You will. You will. I find that like a lot of the time people feel like journaling is for somebody that has a lot of thoughts, but it's not. You could sit in front of a blank piece of paper and just start writing whatever's in your head. I remember one of my, like I was forcing myself to do journaling every day for a bit because I just thought maybe that's like the way to go. So when I was like, you know, dabbling in the whole journaling situ, and I wrote, I don't know what I'm supposed to say right now. And then all these other thoughts came into my head, and I was like, oh my God, my life is a fucking mess.
100%.
You guys ever throw some doodles in there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, get some drawings in there.
Nice. I like doodling.
Yeah.
Haven't done that.
Your crush's name, hearts. Every week there's somebody different in there.
You guys are best friends. You know him so well.
She knows me very well. Self-care is definitely important. I was going to ask how important is self-care, but super important. I
with
feel
respect
like.
to mental health.
With respect to mental health in terms of like balance and everything. But do you guys plan out your self-care, you know? Like, do you plan out your leisure time, your downtime? Because I do not. Sometimes I'll reserve a Sunday just for staying at home, boarding up the windows, turn vampire, you know? Yeah. She knows I do that too.
I was expecting it when we told him to journal.
Yeah,
I was like, no, he's actually
whenever there's
contemplating
somebody who
it.
doesn't want to talk about it, he always
Slightly
does
uncomfortable.
that. Yeah.
Slightly uncomfortable.
I love it.
Or carbs.
Carbs are the enemy.
Okay, lightheaded. What is self-care to you?
Making time for myself.
To do what?
No, fair question.
Yeah.
I think self-care presents itself in different forms in my own life. For me, what self-care looks like is making sure I am going to the gym regularly. That's a piece of self-care. Taking my vitamin supplements in the morning, that's like a self-care thing. Taking moments to relax and not do anything, that's self-care. Part of me being a big planner is I do like to fill my day, and that often does not leave time for leisure. When we were doing episodes once a week, I was constantly trying to fill time with editing or like getting some work done, like making sure I got a TikTok ready today, like whatever it was. That doesn't leave as much time. And so part of like now switching to an episode every 2 weeks at the moment, that's opening up more time for me to play games with friends. That counts as self-care to me, is like getting to listen to other people, putting on music and like just headphones in, world out for a bit. That to me is a form of self-care. Doing stuff for me is self-care.
And like obviously because you're a big planner, you like planning out your self-care, like your bouts. Is that right?
I know when I'm going to have a free space of time. I don't always necessarily know what I'm going to do in that time.
Yeah.
A real like planned self-care thing I did recently was I did shrooms, and like I made a playlist specifically for the shroom trip that I knew I was going to want to listen to, and then like it was going to put me in a certain mood, and it worked great. It did exactly what I wanted it to do. So yeah,
yourself?
sometimes I do, just by myself. That was the first time I've ever done it by myself, but it was like, that was definitely planning out self-care. I knew the day I was going to do it. I knew the time I was going to start. I knew the music I was going to listen to, and that was great.
The most
so sometimes I plan it.
Self-care. That's like very articulated.
Yeah.
It's like a spa day.
Basically,
With
yeah.
shrooms.
Spa day for the mind, honestly. Yeah. So I don't always plan out the self-care, but I do know when I have free blocks, and like in there I can do something that is a bit more leisurely, you know?
What's self-care to you?
Self-care feels a lot less structured to me comparing to Ruben. When I think of self-care, well, after all the things Ruben said, I might want to change my answers a little bit, but is more of just my downtime, me time, like where I'm just don't necessarily have to be alone. I could be with family, but I'm always going to be at home, I think. It's always something at home. That is my self-care. Anything that has to do with at home, I guess going to the gym, definitely self-care for me. My outlet. But yeah, when I think of self-care, the main thing is at home, watching movies, TV shows, munching out.
Would you say you love your space, Cabs?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I do love my space.
MySpace? Oh, you
MySpace.
see? Wait, did I zone out?
What's self-care to you?
It really depends on like what is needed, I think, like for the day or for the week. I like, again, structures everything, and I know that like the chaos of like having an unstructured schedule, again, it's like exciting, like what's gonna happen next, I don't know. Am I gonna go to work today? I don't know. But you have your routine and you follow along with it. And I like to like there's a section in my journal that there's a section in my journal where it's like 10 like habits, and in those habits I I don't like, it's not like I wake up at a certain time or like take your vitamins or anything. It's 10 things that I want to get done at some point in the week that is just for me. I struggle with productivity or lack thereof. If I'm not doing something that brings me some form of value, like in the form of finances, in the form of like, I don't know, something for my Instagram, something, you know, like for my clients, something for my actual job, then it doesn't feel right. It feels like I'm wasting my time. And I'm a musician, and I was a professional performer back in the day. So music is a big part of my life. But then it got to the point where I would sit behind my piano and I would feel like I'm wasting my time. And I'm loving it, and I'm getting like all of this, like these good like feelings coming out of me. But I'm like, I need to stop soon. I got to stop soon. And I can't like let myself continue to play as much as I want to, because it doesn't feel productive. So now,
Weird.
Yeah.
It's
so
in there playing chopsticks.
Learning the Office theme song. Yeah. Kabir learned to play, what was it?
It was
What was it? Oh,
out of
ding, ding,
paper.
ding. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, she taught me. how to play
I
it.
taught him.
Just
That's
off
sick.
listening to the clip over and
so
over.
I'm
again.
I don't read music. I just like hear a song and then I'll
Wow.
be able to play it. But that was a tough one.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in that one. A couple
Pretty
of hours
jazzy.
of that. Yeah, a little jazzy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was singing, he was playing.
Yeah.
It was great. The cats were there. But yeah. So now I tried my best to give myself, like I'll meet myself halfway. I maybe won't let myself just get carried away and then feel like shit about it, because I know I'm going to feel like shit about it. So instead I just give myself a lot of time, because I know that I'm still going to be productive around that time that I give myself. But I'll set aside like maybe 3 hours in a week, maybe like one evening where I could just do fuck all on my piano, sing, listen to music, I don't know, like smoke a little weed and like jump around my apartment. And it's not productive, it's not bringing me anything, but it makes me feel good. And then I know that I'm still going to be productive for the rest of the day, or that I was productive earlier that day. Yeah, so that's self-care to me.
So if you had, let's say, that time where you're doing the piano, the smoking weed, the jumping around your apartment, but you didn't have something that you knew was going to be productive coming up, would that not feel like self-care at all?
I wouldn't
then to you?
enjoy it.
Wow, that's wild, eh?
I wouldn't enjoy it.
Interesting.
I think like productivity and being as efficient as possible was ingrained in me as a child, like no fault of anyone. My parents, like I had to kind of like take over the role of mom for my brothers when I was young. So I think like that was a big one. My purpose kind of got taken away from me when like everyone started to just be better and like self-sufficient. My brothers didn't need me to be like their like fundamental caregiver anymore. And neither did my mom at that point. So I needed to find another way to like fulfill a purpose, but my purpose was always like productive. Like I had to always do something for school or for music school or like for work. And then when I came home, I had to take care of my family. And then all of a sudden I moved out, and then the pandemic hit, and like all of my jobs got taken away. School became online, and then I graduated like 3 months later.
Right.
I had nothing to do, and like this person who literally is not a homebody now stuck at home with nothing to, it was torture. And then once everything opened back up again, that's when I started to notice that I was very like productivity driven.
Wow.
And that I would feel like guilt and like an intense sense of guilt if I went to bed that night without doing something productive.
Yeah, it was like complete opposite.
Couch potato horizontal.
Yeah, video games.
As much
4
as
or
you
5
Like this was
hours
like
a day.
like prime time for you. Hey?
Yeah, I thought I was gonna get bored.
Did not. Missing it.
Yeah.
I'd be working from home, and on my I had a second like TV like next to the computer I was working on, and I'd be just watching Cabs like playing video games all day. Like I'd have his live stream of his gameplay on, and I'd just be like on headset with him because I was just doing like web chats for the stuff that I was doing.
Many
Yeah.
That was
disrespect.
awesome. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, so it's like clearly the pandemic taught you how valuable productivity is, or at least not taught you. It must have always been there,
Yeah.
but it made you see that like in reflection afterwards.
It was like a driver, and I noticed how unhealthy it was. You know, like the fact that I didn't feel like I deserved my sleep unless I did something productive.
Yeah, that's pretty major.
Yeah, just like super weird. A lot happened during that like downtime that like I was working nonstop day in and day out, and then going to school. I was always out of my house, and like I was in like a shit relationship too. So I was always just like not by myself. And I thought that like when you come home at the end of the day after a long ass day and you just like want to be by yourself in silence. So I thought that I enjoyed being by myself based off of that feeling.
Right.
I didn't realize that it was just because I was exhausted and I just had like no battery left. So I didn't actually love being by myself at all. I didn't even realize like I didn't really like myself at that point. So there was like a lot of like having to process through all of that. But yeah, so I'm meeting myself halfway now, and I find like that's the best way to go. Maybe that'll change like as I get older. Maybe I'll start to slow down a little bit. I heard that that's what happens to people. You know, your energy depletes, right? You're pretty old.
Yeah.
You're fucked.
Oldest one here.
Are you?
Yeah. What do you
Yeah.
mean? Don't give me that. Oh yeah, Ruben doesn't know.
Yeah. I guess so then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm counting on that.
Count on the days, huh?
Yeah.
Pushing 30, guys. Soon.
Buddy, you have 3 more years, man.
2. No?
3.
3?
How
Oh.
dare you? My father built this country.
Butt liquor.
Yeah. The prices have never been lower. Anyways, welcome back, everyone. So we talked about self-care. You guys do think you should be planning for self-care? Didn't really.
I think it depends on the person.
Depends on the person.
Yeah.
But self-care, good.
Self-care, well, obviously.
I think it depends on the person because I think that self-care looks different to everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
So however you go about it,
Fair
go
enough.
about it.
I
Make
also
time
feel
for
like exactly. Like there's a lot of people that don't prioritize self-care because you just, again, it's like one of those things where it's like you'll do it if you have time. So you might have like a super busy schedule, especially if you're like a family person or like, you have like a lot of other responsibilities that are outside of just like taking care of like what's here. And like people don't prioritize self-care. So then they'll do it like here and there and then they'll think that that's what it is. But it really has to be like a part of your day. So I think a lot of people, especially like, I guess like maybe our generation is better about it, but like older generations, like self-care is kind of like a pussy move. Like they don't really understand what it means when we're trying to like recharge our battery or like trying to, fill up our own cup for a second, like, setting boundaries with people because like, you're not feeling good that day. So you can't be there for someone else. Like all of this is like, I think new.
Yeah.
So
and accepting it is new.
Yeah, exactly. And like everyone is already so open, not everyone, but like mental health and mental illness, like conversations about it are becoming so like normal. You can, if someone comes up to you and they go, "How are you doing today?" It's like a little easier to be like,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But so I think like self-care now is like a little more socially acceptable too, but like again, it's hard to prioritize it sometimes because like you're taught to be productive, you're taught to be, get all the shit done first before you do all the fun stuff. But it's like, no, that fun stuff needs to be integrated into your life so that you can like actually feel good and like continue to go. Yeah.
In the current time we live in,
These days,
the olden days, these days, having friends that we can talk to and be kind of 100% open with and like have that heart-to-heart type conversations and all that. I don't know. Do you guys think it's a bit of a luxury right now? Or is that kind of changing?
I think it's a luxury and that is the reason why we made this podcast. Right.
I think so too.
We have the luxury of our group of friends and we have people in our group of friends that we have been able to be super open with. The idea was create that for other people to like be part of. You don't necessarily get to directly speak with us all the time. Conversations are always available. If you DM us, people do from time to time, and we have good conversations there. But yeah, I think it's a luxury for sure because I know so many people who I've spoken with who just don't have that. Right? You don't have someone you can go to. You don't have someone who you feel like you can be open with. Even though you might have a best friend, that best friend might not even be someone who you're open with.
Yeah.
That's just the dynamic of your friendship.
Yeah.
So I absolutely think it's a luxury.
I feel like almost like the words best friend have changed now too, because what I would consider a best friend in high school is not the same as what I'd consider a best friend now.
As an adult,
but it makes me ask the question, and also having Aziza on the podcast here, is having a close friend of the opposite sex any more important than having a close friend of the same sex?
Do you guys genuinely think that girls and guys can be friends?
Yeah.
Like hetero?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Before it was like a big no
Yeah.
for the long time. It was only kind of recently that changed.
I was having a conversation about this with actually we have this conversation really often. Like, first, going back to the other topic, luxury of friends. Yeah, that's like, I feel like in Vancouver, it's really difficult to find like genuine people sometimes. Like I'm lucky to be surrounded by like really, really great people, but I hear horror stories more often than not. Or like making new friends with girls and then them being like I've never had a friendship like this before, you know, where it sounds dramatic, but it's true.
That's the way that I hear it too. And I'll hear those stories and it almost becomes like difficult to believe. How can so many people be having such a negative experience here?
How
in
can
this
someone
city? Like,
do that to you?
Yeah.
How can someone treat you this way? Like,
yeah.
just those are the thoughts that pop up, and it sounds like, it sounds fake, but it's true. I was struggling for a little bit with, you know, like dynamics of friendships changing. You know, again, as we get older, our values kind of shift a little bit, and like you get closer with some people and like lose touch with some people. And I, at some point, thought that like my standards for friendships was too high. So I was like, almost felt like I was settling sometimes for some of the people that I was, you know, keeping in my life. But I got lucky, and I have like a really good like group of friends now.
Yeah.
But I think it is important to have friends of the opposite sex. Like, I think it's important because like you get a different perspective on certain, especially like things like relationships and like guy and girl dynamics. But relationship advice, I think, is like the biggest one. Like I have two like really close guy friends, and like one is Kabir, who I like actually feel comfortable talking about stuff like that too. And that's like another thing, is you have to it's harder to find, I think, like that kind of friendship, because you never know what the intentions are of the other person. And like, especially with girls, like, I can't speak for all girls, but for the ones that I've spoken with, we will have a genuine friendship that we think is genuine with a guy. But when the opportunity presents itself, they're not your friend anymore.
Just waiting for a crack in the door.
You're a piece of steak all of a sudden. They're hungry. Yeah. So it's like, sometimes it's challenging to like, I think, find like a good dynamic. But yeah, like it definitely brings a lot of value to life. And like there are times when I would come to you for advice, or like just to tell you about something, and then you'll like provide me with your perspective. And I'm like, my friends and I totally thought one way, and then he says something and I'm like, oh, I see how.
Because you see how they may think.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that I'm a pretty like aware person, but like, you know, you'll always miss things, and guys and girls definitely do run differently. So
I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that like we're some flawless men over here, you know. I mean, you pointed out like it's only been in like recent years where you've like felt that, right?
Yeah.
Or recently, I don't know if you even
felt
said
that
years.
you were perfect.
No. Felt that having
Let me humble you real quick.
I mean, it's pretty good.
Turn the cap.
Having that dynamic of a friendship between a man and a woman, where it is just like purely being friends. And, definitely when I was younger, absolutely, it was true. I think I felt similarly to those experiences you're talking about, Aziza, where it's like, if the opportunity presented itself, I probably would have been stoked. You know what I mean? I probably was like, oh, sick, here we go. Opportunities didn't necessarily present themselves, so we weren't like dealing with like I never was confronted with something like that. But yeah, I think I definitely absolutely 100% believe men can be friends with women. I think it's silly to think otherwise. I see my mom, who has been like longtime friends with this guy. No point saying names, doesn't matter. It's her life. Also, I'll quickly retcon something that I said in one of the last episodes by my mom. I said something about, I thought that she was a chain smoker when I was growing up. She was not a chain smoker. I didn't realize that means lighting the last cigarette with the next one. Pretty much. Or the next one with the last one. She did not ever do that. Sorry, Mom. But
Mom is not happy.
She was like, you said I was a chain smoker? I was like, that's what I thought it was just having more than one in one sitting, but no. Anyways, but she's been friends with a male person for like 40 plus years, and they're like lifelong, really good friends. They go, I know that they've shared like things about their personal lives with each other, you know what I mean? So I absolutely see it being a thing that happens. And so I believe it's something that is real. I think when you're younger, when you're an adolescent, when you're going through school, whether that's high school or university, I think it's very easy. Like the idea of college, for example, is portrayed as this like big like hookup culture in a lot of senses, right? You know, it's like, oh, you get to go off to college now, you know what I mean? Explore things. And so I think that can get in the way of like finding genuine friendships between men and women when you are young. But when you get into the real world, you understand it's not like that, right? But some people don't grow out of that. I think there's a maturity piece to it, because it's like how you see the opposite sex. Like, do you see them as anything other than that? And I think it goes both ways, because I think that there are women who would also believe that they cannot be friends with men for anything other than a sexual relationship. But you got to see it for something other than that, because they're just people, you know what I mean? Yeah.
It's unfortunate how it is. But yeah, you wish you could, because I see the value in it now for sure. Like you were talking about relationship advice, just advice in general. It almost feels like sometimes when I'm talking to you, it's like I'm seeing a therapist, you know, even though I'm not like projecting everything onto you. But no, definitely see the value. And I wish everyone else could see the value too, because not too long ago, I just didn't see it like that. That didn't make sense to me, being friends with the opposite sex. But
like you have like a pretty mixed group of people in your friendship groups, right? Like you guys have a lot of girls and guys. Are the girls and guys dating, or are you guys like actual friends to be friends?
I think we're friends, but like I don't know, like I would consider them more of like a best friend, you know, that you can
like, that's what the question you mean you're targeting.
Okay.
Like these friends are friends that we don't get super deep with all the time. We get together. Like sometimes it gets out. Yeah. But I get what you're saying about like someone who you can actually like confide in and like get those different perspectives from in real
and
conversation.
you think of them when you're like having a dilemma and you like want to go and talk to them. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
It just makes you a better person because you get the other perspectives that you wouldn't otherwise get. Men can feed into men's perspectives, women can feed into women's perspectives, but when you don't get the other and you don't understand how the rest of the world works, you're kind of limiting your own view.
It's true.
World.
I also feel like there's times when like miscommunication can happen between like a guy and a girl, let's say like in a romantic setting, and then or like an intimate setting, and then like you know, when you go to the girls, like in my experience anyway, you go to the girls and then they'll provide you with some insight, like they'll talk to you from like a more like calm and like third party perspective, but then you know they'll also like agree with you and be like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. You'll go to your guy friend and tell them the exact same thing, being like, it doesn't make sense, and they're like, no, and then they you know they provide you with some insight. I mean, like that is where I find like a lot of value in going to like a guy friend. Also, just like in like worldview sometimes too, I find like it's really interesting to hear. Like I'm a pretty spiritual person. I'm also like one of those like crazy bitches that like is really into astrology and like thinks I can manifest everything just by saying it out loud.
Sure, of course.
It's happened before. It has. It's crazy.
I believe it.
But like I'll talk to like some women about that, and then they're way more receptive, and I'll talk to guys and they have good questions because like they're like, on average from like the people I speak with anyway, guys are not as receptive, or they'll be a little more skeptical,
more curious too.
And yeah, like you know, it seems kind of like crazy to them for a second, but then they'll ask questions and it makes you kind of like be a bit more introspective about
it slows
like,
down like your rush of like getting to your conclusion, you
exactly I think like you and I were talking about religion one time. It took him forever to say words out loud. I think that was like the hardest conversation. It was just a lot of the
Which conversation?
We're driving from what's a donut place? Krispy Kreme. Yeah. And then we saw a temple, and then I was like, are you religious? And then after that, it was, I don't even know what we talked about.
Oh, that's probably why it took so long. Because I didn't want to be like, no.
Why? Are you religious? That's a whole other question.
If you're not, you're not.
No.
Yeah.
No. Not personally.
Yeah. But anyway, like we got into a whole conversation about that. And like, I've never heard of somebody just seem so unsure. I'm realizing it wasn't unsure. You just didn't know how to say no. But yeah, like it's I think like in those kind of instances it's really helpful to have like a friend of the opposite sex. It's really hard to find though.
Yeah.
And like girls can say that. I don't know like how guys feel about it.
I think it's really hard to find because like 9 times out of 10 the situation where you are meeting somebody for the first time of the opposite sex these days, it's off an app, you know what I mean? Like it's like the original intent was to date, you know?
Yeah. Would
I
you
feel like
ever
you
go
can-
like? Would you ever like hang out with someone just like off a dating app, just to hang
Just
out?
to hang out?
I never thought about it before, but if like the interests seem like similar and we have like same kind of similar personality, someone I could vibe with, and I'm not I'm not horny.
I was gonna say horned. But yeah, you got to it.
Then yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see why not.
Because you
But-
see sometimes people
yeah.
put in their bios or whatever, like just looking for friends.
Yeah,
Mm.
and I'm like, that's a bunch of bullshit. But
No,
Now-
it's not. Okay, look, I moved to Surrey, knew nobody.
Uh-huh.
I'm like an hour away from everyone, and that's what I did for like 5 minutes. But I did put that in there in my bio where I was like new to my city, like looking to make some friendships, like, and then I put like I changed all of my things to like I'm like interested in volleyball, like music, like blah, 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 you know, and like the responses that I got, like every single guy that I would like that would acknowledge what I wrote would be like, I don't think like this is the place for that, and like, oh, like, or like, no, like you can't, you, why are you looking for like guy friends like on a dating app, or like, you know, you're gonna just get yourself in trouble, it's like, oh, you're lying to yourself, like just comments like that. And I was like, you know, this is the problem.
Those are those people that can't be friends with the opposite.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
be close-minded.
V close-minded.
V triple V.
Next question.
Next question. Last question.
Mm.
This is mainly for Aziza, but of course opened up to the room. As we've talked about before, empathy is a big part of who we both are, for sure. Take on people's emotions quite instantly. But can practicing empathy improve your own mental health? Or does it just put more on your plate?
Big both.
Big both.
Big both.
Big both.
The way that I see it is, so let's say pros first. Empathy, like in my opinion, and this is because I'm like I'm an empath to a fault, and I have learned that over the years, and I have like no good energy hygiene. Like I'm still learning how to deal with not absorbing everyone, and then I ask a lot of questions. So then people, like, oftentimes on first dates, I will have guys like spilling their like heartfelt emotions to me, and I've told you so many stories like that. Couple guys cried.
Really? On a first date?
I have made men cry.
Holy
I
hell.
was seeing a guy, and the first 2 times that we hung out, didn't sleep throughout the night, just talked.
Wow.
And I don't think I said what, he didn't know my last name. I don't think he knew like nothing about me, because we were just talking about, but anyway, so I think to build connections and to build rapport with people, empathy is a huge like pro. It's a huge bonus to be able, you're more of a comfortable person to be around. People feel more inclined and more drawn to you. So you make connections quicker. And then you also like are aware of their energy as well. You could tell like if, you know, if like what they want from you, if they're like genuinely interested in you and want a friendship, or if, you know, like they're just energy vampires.
I'll do it on my own dime.
But
Sick.
but the con is, again, like you're absorbing everyone's energy, and like until you learn how to set boundaries, and like boundaries are hard to set. But boundaries are hard to set sometimes when, like, you know, you're like cultivating a friendship with a new person, because you don't know what kind of energy you're going to absorb from them. You don't know how much of like a wall you need to have up with them. And you want to have like a good balance between like having a boundary and not getting too deep with them, but also like getting to know them. I think my biggest struggle is asking too many questions and then getting
You ask
someone
a
like
lot of questions.
in the feels.
Mm.
Yeah.
But when you're asking questions too, it doesn't even feel like you're
Interrogating.
No,
Because
it's-
I'm just genuinely
yeah.
curious.
Yeah, it feels like
And it
you're
feels
genuinely
natural, but then we get to this like whole place where I'm like, how the fuck did has it been 7 hours already? Like,
Right.
you know? Yeah, so I think like it's definitely like a huge bonus to have, but unless you have good like energy hygiene with being an empathetic person, like it does become like too much on your plate.
Mm. And by energy hygiene, you mean like kind of cleansing yourself after the moment, like dealing with
yeah,
that
like not
kind of
holding
stuff.
on to their emotions. Like again, when you're an empath, you're not just hearing the person, you're understanding.
You're feeling with them.
You're feeling it.
It's like phantom pain, you know, like when someone talks to you about like losing someone or going through a bad breakup or you know, having some like mental health issues. Especially like I have some girlfriends who are like depressed. When I speak with them, I now that I know them, I have better energy hygiene with them. But I used to like take on what they said and just mourn for them and just like be upset for them. And like when I see them, I just like want to like protect them and help them. But like you can't do that. You can only be there so much, and you feeling all that pain is not really helpful to them in any way. But you understand them better. So there's like that pro and con. But yeah, like the energy hygiene stuff is really challenging. It's a new term, actually. I'm using it a lot because I really like it.
I haven't heard you say it before.
I know. I learned it yesterday.
I love that. I totally get what you mean. Well, your question there was like, do you feel like you're putting more on your plate? And if you aren't able to detach those conversations afterwards, it can put a lot more on your plate,
Absolutely.
right? Because you do want to be there for these people, but you now leave, you go home, you both are doing your own thing afterwards. It can be hard not to think about that thing that this person just shared with you.
Yeah.
And now it is something that you're dealing with too, even though it's not your direct problem. You're
it's
feeling
not
it
your
with
emotions.
this person. It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you?
What was the question?
Well, I mean, it was
No. Well, the reason I asked the question because empathy is, like, I would consider it a big part of my life because I definitely take on people's emotions more of like I realized it when I think it was 2 years ago when like there was all the BLM stuff going on. And I would just got like really put myself into kind of Black history and everything like that. And just my whole days were like, a lot of my days were just kind of, they couldn't get it out of my head pretty much. And I just felt like really sad and down. But I think it's important because understanding people and relating to people, once you're able to do that, you can love people more, right? You can, once you understand someone, what they're going through and why they might be doing what they're doing, then you can relate and you can empathize. You can be like, okay, it's not just like that person problem. It's like a human problem. Everyone's going through it, you know, which is why I asked the question. I think
like, yeah, you could be like, I find like friends who are a little bit more like in tune with that side of them also are ones that like know how to be there for you a lot better. Like I have some like very empathetic friends too. And when you have two empaths in a room, it can go either way. You know, you're either just like dumping on each other or like, you know how to like respect each other, but you know how to be there for each other a lot more. So I find like my empathetic friends anyway, like they can anticipate kind of how something might make me feel. I don't have to articulate it as much, and vice versa. Like if someone comes to me with a problem and I know them well enough because we've had like that, you know, conversation or like broke that ice, and then like you know how to be there for them a little bit better. I think like practicing empathy is really important for people who struggle with making connections, like learning what that even means. Like what is empathy?
Yeah. What does practicing empathy mean?
Are you asking or is that rhetorical?
Yeah, no, I mean like just for
yeah, like
what does that look like? Just
I think
listening?
Like, well, I don't know because I'm not a clinical counselor,
Fair
but
enough.
from what I understand, what's like helped me like, I guess, practice it is by just being curious. You know, if somebody's coming to you and like maybe you like notice that they're off a little bit and they're not really talking about it, but their like energy is off, then, you know, like, hey, is there anything that we could do for you? Like, do you need a distraction? Do you want to talk about it? Do you want me to leave you alone? Like, what is it? And I find like that helps like build empathy. There was a sentence. It's the 4 suggestions that you can give to someone that's going through something, and it's do you need to talk about it? Do you want a distraction? Do you want to be left alone? Or do you want to like sit with it, like sit in silence? I think it's I think that's the last one.
Number 5 was, do you want to get hammered?
They leave that out of the whole, you know, the clinical counseling world.
It's like really, really tiny text at the bottom of the page.
Do you want to get inebriated?
Yeah.
So, and I found that with people who are more closed off, that's a really helpful one because they know what they need. So then they'll tell you, they're like, you know, I want a distraction. Okay, we'll go for a walk. We'll go do something. We might get drunk. Or, you know, like I want to talk about it, and then they'll kind of articulate it. But I find like just like finding like learning ways to try and connect with people and like learning to be there for them without forcing something on them. You need to talk about it. Maybe that's not what they actually need. Instead of assuming what they need, just asking questions. And like, I think that's the easiest way to practice empathy.
I think there's a lot of value in it. You are more open to everybody else. You are able to love others more, and you almost meet people where they are better, meaning that you don't assume that the person who's being a jackass to you right now is just being a jackass to you. You may start to think, the more you've practiced empathy, you may start to think they've probably got something going on, whether it's today or whether it's been a long time problem that's bringing them to be who they are right now in front of me right now, which can make it a lot easier to like be okay in moments like that. I'm gonna wrap up here if that's okay. Cabs, those were fantastic questions.
Good job,
Aziza. Thank you so much for coming in.
This
really
is
loved
good.
listening to you speak. Everybody, I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode. I had a good time just sitting here. And Kabir is gonna be bringing in more guests for us over time.
I will attempt to bring in more guests. I don't know if they're going to be better than Aziza.
Nah, can't be.
Oh my God.
Nah. We'll get someone.
But yeah, we hope you all enjoyed, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Peace.